Okay. Special thanks goes out to Marcella for all the assistance she gave me in getting things together today. So, again, thank you, Marcella. And to everyone else, a warm Shabbat Shalom. We have nice warm weather here in Colorado Springs. I hope it's nice in Oregon and Washington. Well, I'd like to start out our uh, parasha today with a story. So if you'll indulge me, I have a little story to share with you. A group of salesmen went to a regional sales convention in Chicago. They had assured their wives that they would be home in plenty of time for Christmas night's dinner. In their rush through the airport, one of these salesmen inadvertently kicked over a table which held a display of apples. Apples flew everywhere. Without stopping or holding back, they all managed to reach the plane just in time, all but one. He told the others to go on without him and went back to where the apples were all over the floor. He was glad he did. The little girl, the apple seller, was totally blind. She was softly crying, tears running down her cheeks as she groped for her spilled produce, the crowd swirling about her, rushing to their flights. The salesman knelt on the floor with her, gathered up the apples, put them back on the table, and helped her reorganize the display. He set aside the bruised and battered apples in a separate basket. When he had finished, he pulled out his wallet and said to the girl, "Here, please take the $40 for the damage that we did." "Are you okay?" She nodded through her tears. He continued, "I hope we didn't spoil your day too badly." As the salesman started to walk away, the bewildered blind girl called out to him and said, "Mister," and the man turned to look back. She continued, "Are you Jesus?" Well, today's story is going to cover ground along those same lines, so listen for that. So again, as we look through our parasha today, we're going to discover we've got a lot of ground to cover. And every time I look to prepare one of these teachings, I always ask the Lord, "Lord, would you help me find out the hidden meaning behind all these sections, these Torah portions, so that I can communicate what you want me to communicate to your people?" And so I worked really hard at that. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do it at one point, but praise God, it came together. So let me just tell you what we're dealing with here in a quick summary. Then I want to get to the heart of the matter here, which it's all important, but some things I think I find I'm blessed more by, and I want to share with you. In Genesis 23:1, we recognize Sarah's death and burial. Here is a woman that lived 127 years, and that's pretty remarkable. We don't have too many other women in the Bible that lived 127 years, and it is really, a very unique amount of time. But when you read that portion about Sarah's life in chapter 23, it doesn't tell you all the great things that Sarah did. And Sarah did a lot of great things. She hung in there beautifully and wonderfully with Abraham through some very difficult times, in a couple of escapades over to Egypt, where Pharaoh made a pass at her a couple times. She remained faithful and true to God, and God spared her through a very difficult time when Isaac was about to be sacrificed. We don't know whether she knew it or not, but Sarah kept her faith in God and kept her faith in her husband, Abraham. She was a truly devoted wife, a wonderful woman, and I hope someday to meet her. So this is a little preview on Sarah. And again, we know that there was a point where there was a burial involved, and we know that Abraham, who may have been God's first real estate agent, negotiated some land with a I guess a gentleman that he wanted to get Sarah into a very special place of honor in a cave, and he worked that all out, and everything went well as far as that goes. Now, what I want to move on to is the marriage of Isaac and Rebekah. This was an amazing story. I was fascinated by it as I read in the scriptures on how God worked this out. So try to imagine you're in Abraham's place. You're a parent, And you don't want your child to marry just anybody. It says in the New Testament, the Brit Hadashah, not to be unequally yoked. And so here's Abraham thinking, okay, I don't want my boy to just marry anybody. I got to make sure he marries the right person. So he sent his servant Eliezer off on a 500-mile journey with about 10 camels to a relative. And he prayed to the Lord. He said, Lord, look, you got to give me a sign, something divine that's going to show me we've got the right girl for Abraham's son Isaac. And so this was quite the challenge. There was going to be a divine test involved. And so here we have Eliezer making his way, completing the journey with 10 camels. And who's coming to the well? A young lady by the name of Rachel. Wait a second here. It's Rebecca. I'm sorry. It's Rebecca. My mistake. So it's Rebecca. So Rebecca is come, and again, she could have said, "What are you doing here? You have no business being here. These are our wells. Hey, just find someone else as well." There were 10 camels there, and I did a little real research on camels. Did you know that camels, when they're really thirsty, drink about 14 gallons of water? There were 10 camels. And so basically, Rebecca had to get together about 140 gallons of water. That's a lot of water. And she did it without complaining. She did it right away. She did it as though that was her job. She did it because she had a heart to serve Eliezer. And I want you to remember those words. She had a heart to be a servant. Very, very special. So this is something that really led to a situation where, in her being so kind to Eliezer thought to himself, Lord, this is the sign I was looking for. This is the sign I was looking for that showed me that she's a woman with a good heart. She's a true servant. And so things worked out a little bit better. So again, for Eliezer, he made the proposal to Laban, the brother, and Bethuel, who was the father, and things worked out well. He said, hey, I got a marriage proposal for you. Abraham, one of your relatives, is looking to get Isaac married off. What do you think? Rebecca, this sounds like a good deal for you. We come from a rich family. We got a lot of good things going on here. You ready to come with us? It seemed like a rush job to me, but God worked that all out. And sure enough, it turns out Rebecca came on back and became Isaac's wife. And again, as part of the story, as part of the Parasha, this all came together. It all worked out. She became Isaac's wife and was a very good wife to him. So, in essence, that's part of the story here. So a little later on, though, it turns out that Abraham, as part of the Parasha, marries Keturah. Nothing special come out of this, guys, per se, unlike the Messianic line, which came through Isaac. His marriage to Keturah, again, nothing all that special to note there. Some scholars think that might have been Hagar that actually was involved there, but again, we really don't know for sure. That's according to some Jewish tradition, but we can't really hang our hat on that in the scriptures that we have before us. So again, Abraham's life finishes up kind of uneventfully, and after 175 years, he goes to be with his ancestors. So we have the death of Abraham and Ishmael's descendants. Again, there were 12 tribes involved there, but again, nothing notable that again continues in the scriptures that we're really sure of as far as any special roles that God gives Ishmael's descendants. Now, where do I really want to go with this? Well, I just want to point out that we have as we move on a little further in the Parasha, there is when we go to 1 Kings 1:1, there is what's called the struggle for succession. And it turns out that King David is getting ready to die and getting ready to pass away. And so he is looking to make sure that his kingdom goes to Solomon and work out all these details. And, King David did the best he could to live a life before God. He had his struggles like many of us do. but he eventually passed away. And then we move on to the accession, of Solomon. Now, Solomon had Adonijah, who was one of his brothers, who wanted to take his throne. And he realized he had some problems, so he had to work with his mom in order to move himself into the right position politically to be able to rightfully claim the throne, which is what his father and his mother wanted to do. So it eventually worked out. God gave Solomon the throne, and things worked out really very well there with Solomon taking charge. All right, now I want to get to one of my favorite parts of the Parasha, and that is the passage from the New Testament, John 4, verses 3 through 14. And you might remember that story as the woman at the well. And the wonderful story there is, again, she was a Samaritan. It was amazing. The disciples were so amazed that Jesus took the time to talk with her, because that wasn't something that the men normally would do, especially a Samaritan. But he did. And like Rebecca, it turns out she was happy to give Jesus some water. She didn't know who he was. She didn't know that he was the Messiah. He would later tell her, "I am the Messiah." It was a nice public declaration that Yeshua made to this woman at the well. And wonderfully, it turns out she began to ask, Jesus told this woman all about her personal, private life. She said, "Sir, you must be a prophet." And he went a little beyond that. He said, "Yeah, I'm the Messiah." And she was pretty amazed by all that. And it turns out Jesus said, "You're drawing water here today, but I am the living water." So we see the connection now between Rebecca, who drew water for Eliezer, and Jesus, who drew the water for women at the well, and what a blessing that turned out to be. Well, as I finish up the Parasha today, I want to share something very special with you. For those of you who love your Hebrew scholars, let me share this with you, because I think you'll be blessed by it. And again, for those of you who know your Hebrew, Hebrew. The Hebrew is one who has crossed over, right? That's what you know Hebrew to be, an Ivri. So listen to what I'm about to share with you. This beautiful here. Finally, it's interesting to note that the Hebrew term for servant, Eved, is spelled A-Y-I-N, Vet, and then Dalet. There is only a one-letter difference between servant and the term Hebrew. The word Hebrew means one who crosses over, spelled Ayin, Vet, Resh. The letters Resh and Dalet look very much alike, so it is possible to see the wordplay. The true Hebrew, get this everybody, the true Hebrew is a servant. Abraham was called Ivri in Genesis 14:13. His family followed suit in standing out in the world through servants, as being a servant, through service to others. A true Ivri will serve or love Yahweh and other people. And that is our Parasha for today.